So, if you can, please help me in welcoming
Sounds good.
Mr. Bob Mangat.
Yeah, actually, I did an event in Hollywood, Florida called Agency Influence Live. I don't know if you guys heard of it, but we had about 130 agencies across the country there come out. And the first day that I did my presentation, the slides kind of screwed up, so I freestyled it. A lot of what I do is, I'm going to show you today, I'm going to show you a couple of things. I'm going to show you how we pitch $70,000 a year clients. I'm going to show you without talking about a funnel or talking about an ad. I do none of those things. In fact, we have a whole digital media company that runs all that stuff, but in my presentation, which is hugely important, it's about setting expectations like Ryan talked about, but also building influence with your community and creating a position of almost a celebrity-like status so that people will know, like, and trust you before they ever meet you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what I show in my trainings, in fact, after this event, I'm flying out. I got a mastermind meeting in Las Vegas at the Venetian. There's another 30 agencies that are coming out there. I'm going to teach them the 100-day journey, why it's so important to keep people paying you month after month after month. I keep my clients on 18 months plus, paying me $6,500 minimum. So last year we went up to about 113 clients. This year I focused on my software company, and we lost a few. There's always attrition, and so we're about down about 80 to 90. So you can do the math on that. I grew up in Vancouver, BC, Canada. I still live there. I frequent Whistler. In fact, after Vegas, I'll be in Whistler boarding for about a week with my kids. That's what I love to do. It was never like that, though. I grew up in an alcoholic home. I didn't grow up with money. In fact, far from. I had immigrant parents that came to this country. Well, not this country, but Canada. And they wanted to give us everything. But they worked their asses off to provide for us. But along those ways, there was certain challenges that my dad had faced and turned to booze, and really as a 5, 6, 7, 10, 12-year-old kid, shouldn't have seen certain things that I saw. You know, I couldn't imagine my kids today seeing those things. I like to think of myself as a good father. Having grown up in that space, you know, there was a couple of things that had happened. My parents saved up enough money. And what they did is they went out and they bought a grocery store, an ethnic grocery store. They said, you know, we're tired of working for other people. So they had the entrepreneur bug back then, and that's kind of where I got it from. But what they did was they put all their money into this one basket. My brothers are 5 and 6 years older than me, so I was kind of a loner back in the days, and I still am, and I enjoy it. I enjoy my quiet time. I'm mostly introvert, but I can be extroverted when I need to, like today. So when they opened up the grocery store, it was in the worst part of Vancouver, called the East Side. And if you've been down there, then you know it's pretty rough. And there was a lot of racial tension, a whole bunch of things going on. Anyways, long story short, that grocery store went bankrupt. And we were pretty much, for the first week and a half, when all that stuff was happening, lived out of our van. We had a van at that point in time. And I remember thinking to myself, this freaking sucks, right? Why can't I go out and hang out with my kids? I used to have this buddy of mine, and I'd go to his house, and he had this like perfect kind of life, right? Like, you know, financially well off, always wearing new kicks, and all of that kind of stuff. And I always look at him, and I'm like, man, I wish, you know, my life was like this. So I had that in my head that I did not want to live like that. I saw my mom going through a lot of stuff. She held the fort, and she's my rock to this day. Every time I have something going on in my life, I turn to her. And she's been there, you know, for me all the time. And my dad and myself are really good friends now. And, you know, we have a great relationship. He's 30 years sober or whatever it may be. And so that was kind of like my upbringing. But in my early 19, I got out of school. I got a scholarship for soccer and played on nationals and did all that kind of stuff. So very, very competitive. I played on a provincial team, which is like the state team of basketball. So what I did is that I went to the University of British Columbia, and I went there for 1 year. And I got a soccer scholarship. I went there, and during that time, even though the soccer scholarship was there, I didn't have the money to pay for my books or courses and stuff like that. So I started to work, because it's not like here, where you get a full ride and everything's good. And, you know, you get a little bit extra. There, it's just like you get a few bucks and that's it. Because the sports programs, they don't put a lot of money into the sports programs up there. I really don't give a shit about it. So I had to work like 3 jobs. I worked security, I worked bellman, I worked telemarketing, I did all those things. And I fell in love with real estate. And when I was 21 years old, I remember I was telling the guys last night at the Cowboys Club, and some of them. And when I was 21 years old, I took a course on how to flip homes with no money down. Right? I was like, I ain't got no money, I ain't got no credit, I ain't got no job. I got jobs, but I'm paying my school. But I want to learn how to flip these homes with no money. And I was always an opportunist, right? I always found things that would make me money, you know. And so. You know, let me step back for a second. It's funny because my son just texted me this morning. He sent me this. He wants this big PC that's a gamer PC. And it's like $1,500. And I said, no way in hell am I going to buy you a $1,500 gaming PC. And he's like, come on, Dad, you work, you make money, you got a lot of money, you know, buy it for me. And I'm like, yeah, that's my money, dude. That's not your money, right? And so a couple of weeks ago, he came to my office and he sat down and he's like, Dad, I got to finish this project. I'm like, okay, sit down and I'll do my project, you do yours. And so he started writing out this project. It was like this brochure on the six things of why wheels are so important to our society. Something stupid like that, right? And so when he did that, he wrote it on a piece of paper, and it was really bad. And I said, okay, listen, son, I'm going to teach you how to use Canva. You guys know how to use Canva? Okay, it's a pretty good tool, right? So I sat there and I taught him how to use Canva. And I told him one thing. I said, everything, if you guys see my slides, it's got my pictures, it's got, you go to bobmangat.com, you can see all the images, and I'm really good on that. Ryan does a great job on stuff like that, on the branding and the positioning. And I said, people buy people. People buy people. Right now you're up here judging me whether or not I'm full of shit or if I'm telling you the truth. Right? Straight up. And you see, when you're building a business and you're building a brand, they are going to buy the funnel, the technology that you're selling, but more importantly, they're going to buy you, whether or not you're full of shit or if you're telling the truth. And so I told my son, I said, listen, if you want an A, throw your picture on that thing. And so we took a picture of them. I got him downstairs into the studio, took a picture of him. He's sitting there like this. I threw him on his brochure, and he went out and he gave it into his teacher, and he got an A on the thing. And she's like, this is the best thing I've ever seen. I said, yeah, because she saw your face on there, and she's like, man, this guy worked hard on it. He took a picture, he did all this stuff. And she started to resonate with that. So this morning he sent me a picture, and he wanted that gamer PC, and he did this thing on Canva with his picture again, and I'm like, this guy's learning. And so it's a proud dad moment. So real estate, I get into real estate, and by the time I'm 21 years old, for those of you guys that don't know, Vancouver is a very hot market for real estate. It was until they put all these stupid taxes and crap like that on it. But really, we didn't see any downturn. When you guys got hit, we didn't. It just kept on skyrocketing. And so if you lived in Vancouver, there's It's called the City of Millionaires for a reason. There's more cars per capita sold, luxury vehicles in Vancouver than anywhere else in North America, right? And it's because of the real estate. And so I got into the real estate very early at 21 years old. I'm 41 now, so that's 20 years ago. And what I did was I went to the school at University of British Columbia, and I would sub-rent a apartment building downtown Vancouver for, say, $1,800. It was a 2-bedroom unit, and what I would do is I would take those 2 bedrooms and I put 2 single beds in each of them, so I got 4 now, and I would rent it to foreign exchange students. And so I was making $4,000 when I was getting $1,800 paying the sublease rent. And so that was my very first introduction to cash flow. And when I had cash flow, everything was okay, right? My business is built on recurring revenue. I shared with you earlier, I don't take upfront payments. I don't take a lot of what these guys teach, fantastic stuff. Some of my stuff is different. I'm going to teach you today of what I do, not theory, not no bullshit, what I think you should do. I'm telling you what I do today in my business. And what I just did this morning, I closed a $65,000 deal through Zoom. How many of you guys want that video? $70,000 close. I'll send it to you. Send an email to amanda@evergenius.com. Anything on the slides, anything that I have available, I will give to you. I'm not going to ask you for it, anything. I'll give you the $70,000 close that I just did, and it goes through my whole exact process to the point where I ask the guy for a credit card right over the phone, and he gives it to me. That stuff we'll cut out and send it to you. So Amanda@evergenius is my assistant. If you guys need slides, if you need proposals, whatever it is, it doesn't matter. We're here to serve. We're here to help you. We want you. Yes? Yeah?
What do we need to put anything in the subject line for the video?
Don't send it yet, because I'm going to probably give you a couple of things, and then you can just send it all in one email and then send it off. She's probably going to be like, what the fuck are these people sending me? So where was it? Yeah, and like I said, I don't teach. I built funnels. I've been building funnels for 20 years. I built funnels on the digital space. I built funnels in the offline space. And what I mean by that, in my real estate business, when I started to build it, really build it, I built one of the largest real estate companies in Canada in less than 18 months. I had 1,000 some odd members paying me, $1,000 a month, and I was teaching them how to make money in their backyard. Back then, this is where the dot-com boom was going on, so everybody, all the investors were pulling out their money. They're like, well, what should we do? They're so used to just handing over their nest egg and going in and saying, hey, manage this funds for me. And I'm saying, you need to control your own money, right? You need to know where your money is going, and you need to be educated on that. And so every 2 weeks, 300 people at a time, I would get up and I would share how I was able to accumulate 42 homes in the past 3 years. And so my buddies would ask me and I would show them. And then I started to charge for it. I went to this guy's conference called Craig Proctor. And for those of you that don't know Craig Proctor, he's a pretty big dude. He was the #1 real estate agent in the world, and I don't know if he still is or not, in a market of about 50,000 people. In Newmarket, Ontario, 50,000 people, #1 RE/MAX agent in the world, and I was freaking amazed. I was like, this guy is just killing it. He's selling a home every 3 hours or something stupid like that, And so I'm like, I had my real estate license, and so this is prior to my real estate investing business. I had my real estate license, and I was doing the regular, what I call is the retail side of business. Taking people in my car, showing them a home, and never fucking buying. Right? And I was like, this is stupid. But I kept on doing it. And so I started to do that, and then what had happened was I went to Craig's seminar, first introduction into coaching, and at that time my mom was like, okay, we're gonna co-sign, because I didn't have any credit. She's like, we're gonna co-sign, we're gonna get you a line of credit, and you're gonna go buy a home. So I went out to Palm Springs, and I saw Craig speak, and his coaching program was 20 grand. My line of credit was 25,000. I sat there, I wrote a check for Craig for 20 grand, and I came home and I'm like, shit, my mom's gonna kill me because I'm supposed to buy a freaking home with this money. No joke, that's how my coaching and mentorship all started. I sat through Craig's coaching program for 1 year. I became the rookie of the year. I got Remax top nods and all that stuff that goes with it. I started to learn about funnels. Those guys were doing funnels. Craig was a product of Dan Kennedy. And for those of you that don't know Dan Kennedy, you should, because we were talking about offers and copy and all that crap earlier. You should know how to write offers and how to do copy and all of those kinds of things, right? So I got my introduction into Dan Kennedy, and I'm like, man, if Craig's doing this, I've learned everything that I need to learn from Craig, which I didn't. I just thought I did, because Craig is still a beast. And I said, well, I'm going to go to Dan Kennedy. So then I went and learned from Dan Kennedy, and from Dan Kennedy I met this guy named Rob, who's from Cleveland. Somebody was from Cleveland last night. Yeah. And Rob was from Cleveland. And Rob said to me, he says, Bob, he's like, what do you love doing? I said, I love investing in real estate because this is what I've done. He said, let me tell you something. He says, a buyer buys once every 5 years. An investor will buy 10 homes in 1 year. And I said, man, this guy's on to something. And he had this program that I bought into, and it was a coaching program. It was $50,000 at that point in time. 50 grand I didn't have, but I did it. So what I did is that Rob changed my life, more so than what Craig did or what Dan did, but Rob really changed my life. He got me thinking completely differently. He got me thinking about content, writing, branding, imaging, positioning, all of those things, what I do today. So everything that I'm sharing with you, that I'm going to show you up here today, is sound, fundamental business principles that every business needs to know. And I use those same things to grow multiple 7- and 8-figure companies today with these principles. I share those exact same principles with the clients that I deal with this morning. Exactly what I'm going to teach you today is what I went through on my pitch. It's no different. So I ended up, I got married when I was 26, 27 years old. Long story short, I worked 80, 90 hours a week in my real estate business. My relationship was the shits with my wife. I had my son. I didn't see him, the same guy that's doing the poses and all that kind of stuff. For almost 2 years of his life, I didn't see him because I was traveling back and forth, and I put all of my eggs into the work, into the business, versus taking care of why I actually do this thing. Right? That's what we say. Well, I'm doing it for you. I'm doing it for us. Yeah, but if they don't see you, if they don't hear you, and I don't know where the hell you are, that was me. And I had to come to a realization. Like I told you, I didn't come from anything. So it was the fear of losing it. I really had to do some work on that, you know? And so, so I rolled up. I remember this very vividly. I rolled up. I bought a G-Wagon, and I rolled up into my home. And my wife wasn't there. And there was a note there that said, you know, we're done. We'll be at my parents'. And so that was kind of a wake-up call. The next day, 2 days later, actually, I went into the office and I told everybody that I had some guy that was going to buy my business off of me, and he was humming and hawing about it. And then, so I just called him up. I made an offer, and I ended up exiting out of that. And I took about a year off, started to go through a lot of motivational stuff, and got my life back together with my wife, and had another child, and you know, but during that time, that's when I started to get involved in the agency space. Companies like Remax, Prudential, all these guys. In fact, one of the largest integrations in Canada was, you guys can go on anybody's website, a real estate agent's website, and you see all their homes all around the market, right? It's called reciprocity. Well, we didn't have reciprocity back in the day. I spearheaded that with our government and made sure that we had that availability in Canada, because young agents that were coming in weren't getting the same opportunities, and it's very hard to make a living. So, so what we did was that I started to consult for guys in Remax, Prudential, and these guys started to hire me. I started to work for companies like Kia Motors. I helped them, Western Canada, helped them increase their business to the #1 Kia dealership. And around that time, I think it was about 5-6 years ago, in North America. And I just did one thing with them. I'll tell you the story about this. I remember going into the Kia dealership in Vancouver Island, and he goes to me, the owner goes to me, he says, I said, show me your advertising. And so he shows me his ads, and he's selling the last 3 months or something like that. You know, those Kia Sorentos, the Kia Sorentos, they're very hot vehicles at that point in time. You know, they're relatively good price, and you get all the options with it. And anyways, so he was sending out 50,000 direct mail pieces a week. A week. He's got 10 locations. So times that by 10. So I said to him, I said, jump in the car with me. And we started to drive around. And I said, I looked at his zip code list. And this will kind of resonate with you, because we'll get to how it resonates in terms of the targeting. We looked at his zip code list, and I said, you're sending it out there, you're sending it out there, you're sending it out there, you're sending it out there. And it was about a 10-minute radius of a block, and probably almost about 20,000 homes that were in that area. And I said, do you think that those people, I'm not judging, but do you think that those people will actually buy your Kia Sorento? And he's like, no, I don't think so. Right? It was a lower income housing area. And so I said, well, we got to get rid of the waste, right? So we can get a better result by sending out 30,000 to our targeted market versus just blasting it out to everybody. And that's what we did, and we blew it up. And that was the only thing I did. And he paid me like some sick number, you know? And so when I talk about with my clients, there's more of a deeper level that I go on with them. You know, I talk about conversion rate. If you want to grow your business, there's really 4 ways to grow your business. You write this down. There's a reach, right? How many people are you getting after? How many new people are you getting after? Right? That don't know about you or your business. There's resell, right? In the internet space, we talk about cross-sell, upsell, downsells, all those kinds of things. There's resell. If a person comes in and buys my stuff, I'm going to try to sell them some more shit. Because I want to increase the average, you guys know it by cart value, or I want to increase the average lifetime value of that person. Right? There's referral. You guys know what that is. And there's reputation. Right? Positioning, branding, all those kinds of things. And so, you know, over the past, I would say about 5 years, I've created a really great digital agency business. I've created a software company. I also created what I call Less Clients, More Money. Actually, my real estate system was called Less Clients, More Money. And I like to deal, I don't like to do a whole lot of work, but when I do work, I want to get paid for it, right? I'm not a volume guy. I figured I can get the upper echelon of people that have the money to do business with me, and we're going to give them everything. So for example, this morning we signed a $70,000 deal or $65,000 deal. What we did was we basically put a whole virtual marketing department on their behalf. You can use my graphic designer, my funnel maker, all these guys, but they don't know what they need, right? So they trust in what I'm going to do for them in a systematic way, in a systematic process. Brian talked about it earlier. If you're selling a $6,000 funnel, don't just give it to them in 2 days. Mine's 6 to 8 week build-up. I can't change your business overnight. It took you 17 years to create this mess. You want me to fix it over 30 days? No. That's why my average guys, I'm constantly sharing with them that, hey, this takes time. And when you go after the people that are just starting out, and it's your choice, I'm just giving you what I do, okay? And it might conflict with some of the things that you've been told. I'm just telling you about my business and how I run it, and the success that we achieve. But when you go after higher ticket clients, their problems are completely different. Right? So I plug a leak. In fact, I built my business off trade shows and speaking. I'm in the medical space. I built a company called 7-Figure Clinic, Honest Doctor. And when I go and speak, I speak to 50 to 100 doctors at a time, orthopedic surgeons. And I tell them, I ain't gonna give you the next best thing. I ain't gonna give you, I have that technology. You see, when people buy from you and you create a good brand or a position, they're automatically gonna assume that you have the best technology out there, right? So for me, I just get up there and share my story. How many people resonated a little bit with my story? Yeah. Right? Brings everything down. So understanding and creating your story, Ryan's a master at that. You know? And so I go up and I speak for an hour in front of 50 to 100 orthopedic surgeons, and I close 25, 30% of the room, no problem. But I tell them, I say, I ain't gonna come and change everything in your business. I'm gonna plug that one leak that you're having a problem with. The biggest pain point for this lady this morning was not hiring the right people. She was already doing $2.5 million a year. So what do I have to do? I'm just going to create a funnel for her for a recruiting campaign. Right? That's our start. Okay, well, let's get somebody in. And what else? She doesn't have the time. So we're going to train that person too. We're going to train that person on how to handle leads, how to manage them, and how to get them into your office. So I talk about the prospects to close process. So you can ask Amanda for the patient journey or the customer journey blueprint that I've created, and I'll send that to you as well. And it's basically a process that I use that takes people from a prospect to a close, but it's a visual graphic that you can see, and so it's actually a cartoon map. And what I talk about is it's a visual map that kind of goes through everything of what needs to happen in a campaign. But I only talk about it from here. I don't talk about the rest of it that I'm going to share with you today. Okay, so a prospect is when you run an ad and you get somebody in your funnel, that person becomes a lead, right? That's a prospect, okay? The next goal, this is where a lot of people will stop. This is how we get higher ticket retainers. So they'll run an ad and they'll drive people here into a prospect, okay? This is where 90% of the people that are starting out in this business will stop. They're like, I built you a funnel, I created your ad, I don't give a shit what you do with the leads. I say, screw that, I'm invested with you in this, and we're going to try to figure this out together. I never say that I do, I say that we're going to try to figure it out together, okay? So, and here's why I say that, is because 90% of the people are just doing this. If you look on the internet or in Facebook or however you're attracting people, they're all saying, hey, listen, I'll get you 30 opportunities, or I'll get you this many opportunities. They say, I ain't getting you shit. We got things to fix. Don't even talk to me about leads. That's why I never bring up ads or campaigns. When you watch the 70K close, send me a message back and let me know what you think about it, because I'll help you in your process if you want. Okay? In there, I don't talk about an ad. I talk about fundamental sound business principles in their business of what's going on today. And this happens only when you can niche. I know their problems better than they know theirs. What I didn't talk about is all the hours. I was telling Ryan yesterday, we were sitting outside, I said I flew 150,000 miles last year. 150,000 miles. I go inside of clinics, I shake their hand, I talk to Mary at the front desk, ask her what her problems are, I go in the back, I figure out what their equipment is, all the bullshit money that they're spending on all that. I take all that and I rip it out, and I actually go in like a real advisor. That's why I keep people longer. They trust me, even though we don't get them a result of what you guys might think. Right? There's some months that we don't generate them anything. But their result is completely different to the result that we think that everybody wants. You come to me and you tell me that you're going to give me 30 new clients in my business, I'll say, you're full of shit. But if you say to me, hey, listen, I've got this really great program, because it's not your job to grow my business. It's not. It's my job to grow my business. When I hire somebody, I had a guy that came in that did Facebook ads for me. He's like, I'm going to grow your business, I'm going to do this. I said, listen, stop. I just need you to run the ads and build me funnels. It's not your job to figure out how I grow my business. That's my job. Know your role, do your job, right? So when we're talking about this, this is very, very important, guys. You look at this and you look at prospects, appointments, consultations, and close. At each level, you can figure out a conversion percentage. At each level. So you already know that your funnel program or whatever it may be gives you a conversion rate on your website, right? Tells you that if you get 100 people come to your site, 10 of them sign up for a lead, you get 10% landing page conversion, right? Well, let's say you get 100 here, and I don't know, let's do 50%, right? I'm sorry, 100 prospects here, and a 50% come into appointments. Okay, so that means that 50% of the people, you're picking up the phone or you're emailing them, and they have indicated that they're interested in booking an appointment, right? So now we know, okay, well, in my case, I'm going to reference doctors because that's what I do. I'm going to say, Mr. Dr. Dar, because that's the guy I was just talking to earlier. Dr. Dar, you know what? Your prospect to appointment ratio is 50%. If we get 100 people through the pipeline, it's 50% we can get on the phone. However, a lot of people will just stop right here too. They might put on some Calendly booking appointment software or something like that and do that. But in my experience, there's major show problems, right? How many of you guys try to book some appointments and nobody freaking shows up? Don't you hate that? Yeah. So there's got to be the same effort put on building all this than this. And this is where I'm telling you that you can create value. There's a reason why I charge $6,500 a month or $70,000 a year or even $15,000 in a day to go in and fix this process. Understand that a shoulder surgery is like $15,000. Anterior hip replacement surgery is $11,000. So $6,500 is a steal, right? See, I go after higher ticket values because I want to charge more, so I got to justify, well, if he only gets me one, it's justified. Yeah? You guys with me? Stand. So it's easier to sell to somebody that's already bought from you than to sell somebody that's never bought from you, right? I'm going to increase their business without increasing their traffic or their spend. I just want to know these numbers. If you can tell me these numbers, I know what to do with your business. Chances are they don't know these numbers. But this is fundamentally what you can call these stages whatever the hell you want to call them, I don't care. But fundamentally, these are all the stages that happen. A lead comes into a prospect needs to pick up the phone, they come into an appointment needs to show up for their freaking appointment, so you have to build automation sequences, or whatever it is, for you to get people in, and then you have to understand what they're closing at, because at the end of the day, if you're doing everything right here, and they ain't closing, then there's a problem, right? Because that's going to directly affect what you're doing. So, a lot of people will or may stop here. The first thing that I do when I take on a client is I do a reactivation campaign, because a lot of the times people neglect their lists, and it's very easy for me. I built a program called EverGenius, and EverGenius, you just log in there, you put all their stuff in, and you just text everybody out saying, we're going to do a seminar tomorrow night about stem cells. And you look like a rock star because they've neglected that list. And you can add that on as a value. Okay, and I'll show you when we talk about pricing and packaging in a second. So there's the other end of the spectrum is now when a patient or a client or a customer becomes one, you have to deliver that service, right? How many of you guys go in somewhere and they do everything great, but when you come down to the delivery, it sucks? So I put more emphasis on my business in this area versus the front. Because I know I can get people in. I know I can cut the conversion rate. Right? Because if I can do this, then I don't have to work so hard. Chad talked about it yesterday, referrals. Great thing, it just comes. Right? This is their resell, and this is referrals. Okay? And so actually on tomorrow is what I'm going to go through is called the 100-day journey with our Inner Circle guys, because my goal is to get them to keep more people, right? The average agency will keep somebody for 2 to 3 months. That's some shitty ass stats, man. 2 to 3 months. You work your ass off to get somebody and you keep them for 2 to 3 months. And we never do anything about it, to be honest. Nobody does anything about it. If you want to create value and you want to charge more money for your services, then you have to build value into your programs. That's all. Deliver. What can you help them up here? Well, maybe I can create a delivery plan for them. When somebody buys, this is what happens. Resell. What can I do for that? Because if you've delivered, if you've created a great process and created a great journey, if you've delivered, then what? It's going to be easy to buy some more shit from you. So maybe you create a resale plan. You think you can add another $1,000 or $1,500 for that? Yeah, hell yeah. And then create a referral plan for them. How do you get your business? I get referrals. Well, what's your referral plan? I don't know. Right? Well, let's create one. It's very simple. Close, deliver, resell, referral. This is when you create your businesses. If you're selling funnels, I don't sell one-offs. I never take a setup fee. I never take initiation fees or anything like that. I don't care about it. But guess what? Guess how long it takes me to build my shit out?
6 to 8 weeks.
Guess what I say?
6 to 8 weeks.
Setup fees are shit. It's bullshit. It really is. Because every time when you want to negotiate something, you can negotiate the setup fee. Right? So just spread it out and use it as a tool for you to sell some more stuff. I ain't gonna charge you a setup fee. but it's going to take us 6 to 8. It is a setup fee. I use 3 tiers in my program of pricing, and there's a reason why. I know Ryan said 2. Choose whatever you want. I'm telling you what I use. 3 tiers I use, and the reason being is because I follow the model of a lot of, if you went in and bought a software program recently or whatever it is, and I learned this from Dan Kennedy, if you ever go to the sites, they always show the middle one, the most popular. Nobody wants to be at the bottom of the barrel, right? So this morning I offered her a 4,700 plan, a 5,500 plan, and a 6,500 plan. Okay? In my 4,700 plan, you guys good with this?
Yeah.
I'll take some questions. How much time do I got still? I'm good?
Yeah, you good, you got, yeah, keep rolling.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I did was, somebody mentioned bronze, gold, silver, or something like that. Was it? Yeah. I'll do like a gold, platinum, and then bronze back here, because I'm justifying my middle tier price. And here's the thing, I'm gonna step back before, so remind me to come back to this. If you don't know where you're going, how are you gonna get there? Right? So. I wish I had my slides because I go through this process called the ideal lifestyle. And you can ask Amanda for the videos of training on that. It's in my Less Clients, More Money program, but I'll scoot them out somehow and I'll give them to you. But basically the ideal life is, on one column, you're going to tally everything that is going on in your life today. Right? What is your actual expenses? Everything. Lay it out on the line. Everything. Because the reason why I love recurring is because your expenses are monthly. And you're taking one-offs. It's usually not, your cell phone bill is monthly, right? And so if you can get into a habit of creating monthly revenue for yourself, you start to create a sense of financial freedom, right? Because if you have enough clients that pay your actual expenses, you get what I'm saying? My wife wants to buy a car, and I ask her, how much is the car? And she tells me, and this has been going on for the last 8 years, every time she wants to buy something that's expensive, I say, let me get a client. I do not want to change my financial position. I want to go to Whistler. I want to buy whatever the fuck I want to buy, when I want to buy it. I want all of my expenses paid for. If I want to take a year off, I can. Right? So get in the habit of creating that mentality of saying, listen, I ain't going to dip into my savings, because what do we learn when we're younger? Get a job. My parents, I worked for one of the largest corporations in BC. What I didn't tell you is Microsoft certified when I was 19 years old, and I worked for the largest corporation of insurance corporation in BC. And I was a technical analyst. In fact, when I got out into entrepreneurship, I saw an older guy there that was 60-year-old that was potentially my job, hunched over, just miserable as shit, and I said, I am not going to do that. I'm out of here. But when I left there, what did my parents say? My parents said, you're freaking crazy. You're absolutely insane. You're getting a $25 an hour job with benefits and potential for increases of about 2% per year. Woo. No joke, but that's what we're taught, right? And so I said, no, man, you know what? I'd rather be broke as fuck than to take that job. So, anyway, so when I went there, I lost my train of thought now. Where was I?
You left your job to try to
Transferred out of a corporate job.
Yeah, I mean, so, like, the corporate job when I left there was, basically, that's when I got into the real estate business that I started to kind of get into that. But what was I doing? What was I talking about?
You want to dip into your savings.
dip into your savings.
You were
Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's right. So, like, you know, my parents would save up their money and then they go buy it, and then, like, we'd be eating like shit for the next 2 years, or, you know, we couldn't afford to buy anything, or no, we gotta hunker down because we bought this, and blah, 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 right? And so today, when I wanna go out and buy a car, or I wanna buy a house, I don't wanna change my financial position today. In fact, over the last 2.5 years, because I have 7 homes on the go right now, I flip a couple, and then I actually renovate and I Airbnb them in Pacific Northwest. Some of you guys are from there, or I'm not sure. But when I buy these homes, I never took them out of my savings. I just worked my fucking ass off. That's why I flew 150,000 miles, because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I wanted to give something for my kids. I wanted them to have something later on down the life, just in case, you know, they don't choose the same path that I want to go down, right? Maybe they want to become a teacher or something like that. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but if you're living in Vancouver, I have 2 of my nieces that are teachers, and they can't afford to live there. And so I do these things for them, right? And so start getting into that mentality of like, okay, well, what is my ideal? What is my actual? And then what do I want? What is my ideal, right? You know, Chad talked about it yesterday, the car, the house, you know, all those things, right? That came after hard work and grinding it. You know what I mean? And so if you do that, and you focus on the monthly recurring revenue, you'll be much more free. A lot less stress, you know? And so that's the ideal lifestyle part. Make sure you email Amanda, and she'll get you those videos and the checklist or the sheet with it. And I walk you through, like, it's only like 15 minutes, and I walk you through very good, because that's going to set you up. Because remember I said, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there? So how do you know what you're going to charge? There's a reason why I charge $5 grand a month, right? Because there's a certain number of hours that I can spend. I spend a half an hour on a client each month. The rest my team does. Okay? And so I run 80% margins. It's unheard of. I run my own team. It's because I have the experience to do so. Right? They all sit around me. I have them back in Vancouver. And what I mean by that is that, like, when you get to a certain point or a certain level, you know, you want to start to think about those things about, hey, listen, am I really in this agency business? I mean, there's a reason why I built Agency Influence Live. There's a reason why I built Agency Influence Inner Circle, the less clients, more money. There's a reason why I built these things, because I really care about the agency world. I really do. I'm here, I don't get paid for it. I'm here sharing my, you know, my knowledge. If you email her as well, I'll give you all the recordings from my Agency Influence Live, including like Forbes, Ryan Suman was there, myself. I did 3 days on a lot of these things. I shouldn't give them out to you, but just don't tell anybody, because other people are paying for this shit. But I'll give them to you guys. So just in that, say, can we get the Agency Influence Live recordings as well in November? I'll give you those. So, but don't overwhelm yourselves. Focus on one thing, get it done, and move on to the next. And that's where a lot of people are mistaken. You see, I remember going into my one of my mastermind meetings, and I was sitting with a guy, and he's a brain expert, right? And we're 3 hours into this mastermind meeting, and I go sit down, and it's about lunchtime, and we're sitting there, and his assistant, we're talking about it, and he's in a very well-known movie, like The Secret, you call, and we're sitting there, and he comes walking in, or his assistant comes walking in, me and him are chatting it up, because I recognized him, and I just kind of started a conversation. And he walks in, and or his assistant walks in, she says, your flight has been booked, you leave in a couple hours. So he gets up, and he's like, I gotta go. And I said, wait, what the hell, man? We just started, it's been 3 hours, we're like right into this. And he says to me, he says, I got what I needed in the first 2 sessions than I can do with more. If I stay here and I sit for the next 2 days, my brain's going to be going like this, and I won't have the ability to focus and do the things that I need to do, right? And so I learned that from him. And sometimes, if you ever see me at a meeting when you see me walk the hell out and get out of there, and you never see me again, you know what I've just done. And there's been times where I go and I'll pay all this money and I'll be at the first session and I'll be like, that's what I need. That thing is going to take me to the next level. And I'll just leave. Because I go back up, even if I'll stay there for the next 3 days, but I'll stay there and I'll just crank stuff up. Right? Pricing and packaging, right? That's what we're talking about. So now you know how to create what you want, a goal for yourself, right? A monthly ideal goal, right? Now, so monthly actual goal, but we don't do it for actual, right? We want life, we want better. So we're going to create an ideal life. Like, where would you want to live? What cars would you want to drive? Where would you want to eat? How much money would you need to put away for vacations? All of those things, and that becomes your ideal life, and that's what we're going to focus on. Okay? So in that, you then break it down per client. How much do I need to charge per client? Now you have a purpose of what you should be. How many of you just like, shit, man, what should I charge this guy? Right? Like, well, you know? I agree. Get whatever you can, but also have a starting point. So I usually do like a bronze, and then I'll do like a gold and platinum. You can ask Amanda for my 3-tier checklist too. I'll give you guys that. So once you've done that, you're able to create authority, because now you're talking about business, and these guys understand it. There's certain leaks that you have to plug with them. It's very easy to talk about the next steps. Do you want to see how we can go ahead and fix it? In fact, when you watch my 70K close video, you'll notice I don't do any hard sell. I don't say, come on, let's buy. Nothing. They say, what's the next steps? And in that video, they will also say their expectations. They set their own expectations of saying that it's going to be about a year to a year and a half before all of this stuff starts to work. Isn't that crazy? I didn't say it. But when I did all of this stuff, they just came to their own conclusion that it's going to take that long. I don't sign any long-term agreements. I say you got it now. It's 30-day notice of cancellation. If it's not working for you, it's probably not working for us, and I don't want that. Just say leave. So in here, you want to kind of, add a few items in there, right? Whatever you think may work. We add website. I think it's website, funnel. We don't do any automations. We don't actually even do a funnel on that. Just something like bare bones. And normally what I'll say is I'll just cross that out. As I'll say, listen, I don't even know why we have this. We're just going to cross that out because, based on your revenues, we know. And here's the thing. The other thing is that when you're actually going through the prospect to close process, you can break it down a little bit further for them. I didn't talk about it, but I'll talk about it now. But you can break it down a little bit further for them, and you can say, well, how much is a client worth to you, right? So you can try to get the current numbers from them, because it comes as more of a consultative approach versus saying, how much do you make a year, right? So you can come to your own conclusion of what that person is going to make that year. So when you go to prospects, appointments, consult, and close, okay, well, great. How much do you charge your patients? Well, it's $5,000. Okay, and how many new patients or how many patients did you do at that level over the past year? Okay, great. Do you think we can increase that? Yeah, for sure. So I automatically in my head, I'm like, 1.5, 2 million. Okay, cool. I know this guy's going to be good. Otherwise I'll just break it down, and I know when I'm going to set my proposals, I'll just give them a certain thing. Cool. So when you do that, and then what I'll do is I'll say, okay, well, if we know your closing ratio, let's say it's, for example, it's 5,000, I didn't go through this, but I'll go through it now. But basically, it's 50%, so that's 50 here, 25 here, and then let's say you close at 10% here, and that's 2.5. So this would be 12,500 off of a campaign that we generated 100 leads for, right? So it's very standard, very simple. And say, okay, well, how many times do those people refer people to you? Because it's about, in my case, it's about patient acquisition. I don't care what they're coming in for. I want to acquire as many patients as I can. So how many times are they going to refer people to you? Is it once a year or is it twice a year? And then I'll just add that on. Because what am I trying to do?
Show the value.
Show the value and justify what they're going to spend with me, right? So then I go over here, because what they're thinking is like $6,500 a month, 65 grand a year, like you gotta like build, you gotta layer everything on top of each other, right? So deliver, resell, referrals, and then your pricing and packaging strategy, and then in here, most of the times, this is your ideal. 20% of the people will take your platinum. I don't care if you just put it up there, they'll take it. Okay, a guy like me always wants platinum. So gold, pop it in here, but your ideal lifestyle, the number that you come up when you do the whole process, should be here. And then if you get this, it's bonus. Okay? Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, I think I'm. Yeah. We got one right here. Yeah.
How would you suggest we first get in front of such a medical client, like getting through the gatekeeper or creating ads to recruit potential prospects? Like what's the ideal path?
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of ways. There's you can Chad talked about going on foot, right? I mean, we all have doctors and dentists and people that we deal with, just spark a conversation with them to get involved. I do it a little bit differently. I'll do Facebook ads, we have a LinkedIn prospecting system that we use, and then we also do a lot of trade shows. And I feel like I can connect way better with people when I'm physically in front of them versus any other way. And a lot of times I'll just pay for the speaking spot. So I'll call the local, orthopedic association. I'll call them and I'll say, hey, listen, because a lot of them are underfunded, and it's usually a doctor that just started it with his buddies, and so they're underfunded. And if you just go there and say, hey, listen, I want to sponsor your next event, do you think I can get 30 minutes to speak? I actually have a whole thing on trade shows and stuff like that that I could have shared. I don't know. But I'll give you the gist of it. If you're going to do it, then let's say, for example, you spend $2,000 to buy a booth. Don't just go there and go to the biggest show. In fact, I made the biggest mistake. The first show that I went to was 5,000 people, and I didn't get a sniff there. And so I'll go in front of 50 people now, and I'll spend higher dollars. But a lot of the top orthopedics or top orthodontists or the people that really have great practices are in those events. They don't necessarily go to the ones that are that big, right? Because they get more value of it. And if you can get in there, a lot of their websites are crap. So you can go in there and say, listen, I'll rebuild this, I'll do that, whatever it is. But remember, like if you get in front of 50, I've spoken in front of, my largest one was about 950 docs. And my conversion, the money that I made on that event, and I spent $30,000 feeding them, the money that I made on that event versus the money that I spent going in a 50 doc show, I doubled on the 50 doc show versus the 950.
Okay, my question is, when you walked us through your funnel from the prospect to the appointment, the schedule, the close, and you mentioned, you started talking about, there's a certain ratio of people that actually fall off from the interim levels and then it progressively fall off, but that there's some things that we can deploy to moving through those levels to enhance our conversion. Can you give us some examples of some of the things that you might recommend to your clients for those processes?
For sure. Ryan talked about like the 5%, right? The 5% are now buyers. So when you run an ad, 5% of the people, 95% of people aren't. So you can use that as your. In fact, if you watch any of my marketing videos, I talk about the 3 and the 97%, but I guess it's 5. So what I'm talking about is that just because somebody looked at your ad and they came onto your website, it doesn't mean that they're not interested. They're just not interested right now. And I always explain it this way for some of you guys that may be a little confused on this. So for example, I bought a new car, right? And when I buy a car, probably like somebody was mentioning yesterday, I just ordered it off of Gorilla and it showed up at my door, right? But when my dad buys a car, he bought a $150,000 car, a Mercedes. He's been wanting it for the last 30 years, right? But when he went in and bought it, it took him 6 months to buy it. And the first salesman, the first car that we actually looked at was the car that he bought, right? Just not from that salesperson. But had that salesperson actually followed up with him and did a few things half-ass, no joke, he would have bought from that guy, right? And so what I'm saying is that I'm a now buyer. If I'm going to find something, I ain't wasting my time. I'm going to buy now because I don't have the time for it. But there's people like my dad, and when you go into the medical space, those are the people a lot more, because if you're doing regenerative medicine or stem cell on the knees or whatever it may be, those people are usually in around 50 to 60 to 70 range. And so what we deploy is automated campaigns, right? So I discounted the fact that out of the 100 leads, 50 showed up. And I go through that process, but what I really stress in my close is I say, I don't care about that 2 people that close, because that is the 5%. I care about the 95% that aren't doing shit. So that over time, we can create this program, this educational, automation campaign that we can go after these people over time. And that only just validates what you're trying to say in how long it's going to take to build and grow this business, right? Or implement these solutions. If you do X, potentially you can get X. Like Ryan said, you don't guarantee shit. I don't guarantee shit, right? But I say potentially, if you do this, potentially there's a high probability that we could get a better result. But I need your help on this. I can't do this all on my own, Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so you're saying in essence that give them some retargeting or follow-up sequence or automated strategies so that they can increase the conversion of those at each stage of the experience.
Yeah. If you go to lessclientsmoremoney.com, I think it is, you can watch there's a short mini webinar on there that I go through, just sort of the pitch process. Maybe it's not on that, but if you go on that, book a time with one of my guys in my team and they'll walk you through some of that stuff.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Would you mind elaborating on the LinkedIn prospecting process you just touched on?
Yeah, it's very simple. I've written a couple of books, and we do what is called the shock and awe box. And a shock and awe box is basically, it's a box of stuff. And it's got my book. It's got we go on Facebook and just look up what the doctor likes or whatever it is, and we'll buy something that has something that's similar to it. We'll pack it up in this really nice box. My wife does it. That's her only job. That's what she does. She wraps it all up and she sends it off, and we FedEx it to them. And when we FedEx it to them, they sign for it, and only the doctor can sign for it. When the doctor signs for it, we know that they got it. Now, there's 2 things that we do. We do it on the first, when we have a consult call with them, or if we just got out of the trade show with them. So meaning if we saw them at the trade show, they signed up for our stuff, they're going to do what I call is a practice growth session. And so they do the practice growth session. In between that time, we'll ship out a box of stuff. And it's a big box, it's like this, and it cost me about $100. Like, it's not cheap stuff, right? It's like pop sockets, power banks, water bottles, t-shirts, and then there's really good information like my comic book. I created a whole comic book on all this stuff. My process map, my patient journey map, my book, The Automated Entrepreneur, and a whole bunch of other things. And so in the LinkedIn prospecting side of things, is we just go, hey, listen, I wrote this book. I think it might be valuable for you. Where can I send it? And we just ship out books. That's it. And a book is, the ultimate authority, positioner, right? So in your case, if you don't have a book, then you can send something else. In fact, what I did before, when I didn't have a book, I pulled out a book that aligned with me in what I wanted to teach and so it was the 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. Anybody see that book? It's a small book. It's like $6 or $7, and we ordered like 50 of them. We stuck that book. Hey, here's a great book. It doesn't matter anything. If you don't have a book, it's okay. Just send it. Yeah. Because it'll help them cut through all the noise. Now you've sent them something physical, and it's that law of reciprocity. They're gonna have to show up on that appointment, the worst case. Right? Because you took the time out to do that.
When you send that stuff, do you put in like a personalized note, like, hey, it was great meeting with you, looking forward to our...
Yeah, actually I have it just depends, like if it's at a conference, I won't. If it's online and I see this guy, then what I'll do is we have this video card, and I'll record a quick video on it, and then there's like, you open it up and it just starts to play. And it'll say, hey, Dr. So-and-so, I just wanted to shoot you off this quick video just to kind of put a face to the name, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and those are like $15, $17 a pop. It's expensive. You can get them from China is where I got them from, and then you just kind of easily load it up and send it off. Yeah.
Well, you say the value of those initial, like you said, the law of reciprocity has totally increased your conversions when you do end up getting on calls.
Oh yeah. Yeah, completely. They show up, we get a high show rate, right? And we know, like, when we don't send those packages, we get really crappy show rates. Because the doctors are always like impatient or, this or that. And, when we send that stuff, it creates an authority. Yeah, how many guys is there? I could probably send you guys one if you want. Yeah.
That'd be real awesome.
Might take us a little bit though, but I'll send you one. She won't wrap it up, she'll just throw it out of the box and send it over.
You had said something about like water bottles and t-shirts. Is that your branded stuff or their branded stuff?
My branded stuff, yeah. So I built off the brand of Seven Figure Clinic because we have a mastermind program. In fact, in June we're doing a medical growth summit where we bring on like 350 doctors and talk to them about how to grow their business versus the science aspect of it, because there's really not a whole lot of that stuff going on. So what I do is I basically created this 7-figure clinic, but on the back of that I created Honest Doctor. Okay, so a lot of them are like, well, we don't really care 7 figures because I'm already doing that, so what the hell is this going to do for me, right? So then we're like, okay, well, let's create something else, and then we created Honest Doctor. And Honest Doctor is a reputation platform, and we give them the status of becoming a top-rated doctor. And there's nothing more important to a medical clinic. They could be broke as shit, but their reputation with their colleagues are the most important thing. So if you can feed on that and create something like that, that's going to help you out, for sure.
Bob, thanks for sharing all the information so far.
Yeah, no
It's
problem.
been amazing. Quick question though. So we've been concentrating on the funnel side of it, and what you mentioned was really going through and looking at their entire business and system and becoming a true consultant. When you niche that, how much time did that take you to develop to give us an idea of what type of time investment it would be to sell like you?
Yeah, good question. Nobody asked me how I transitioned from real estate to medical doctors,
Yeah.
So what I did, and I get that question a lot, And it actually helps me because a lot of these guys invest in real estate, they own their own buildings. We try to get more cap rate out of their buildings and all that kind of stuff. But beyond that, you know, in my presentation I would have went through there, so I'm kind of a little bit, I don't really need that, but it just kind of helps me keep the flow. But what I didn't share with you guys is when my aunt about 5 years ago, I was still consulting for all these companies in different aspects. And about 5 years ago, my aunt, who pretty much raised me when my parents were working and all that kind of stuff, she had cancer. And she went through a very difficult period. And you know, I'd go there every time I come back, I'd go there, hang out with her because she's just a sweetheart and nicest lady that you ever meet. And couldn't believe it happened to her, you know. And they used stem cells on her. And when they used stem cells on her, it didn't save her life, you know, but it prolonged it. And it helped her in a way, in that sense. And so I started to look more into it. And at that time I was working with chiropractors, doing decompression and laser and neuropathy and stuff like that. And I was like, man, this is pretty cool, right? And we're really on the forefront of it. Like, you hear about it now, but you know, you didn't hear about it 5 years ago. It's really the last years when it started to really take off. And so I've been working with some of the largest organizations to help them grow and create great marketing programs around what the FDA is doing and all of that kind of stuff. And so when you get into that kind of level, like, I don't know anything about friggin' FDA or anything like that, but it's just like, hey, I'll help you create this because I know if I help them create this, they're very worried about it, they're going to push me to the whole market, you know? And so, yeah, and so that's kind of how I got into it. And I share that story. When I get up on stage, I tell you about stories, right? I share that story and they're like, oh, okay, I got it now. You know? That's why he's doing this. And then, so for me, it was like, well, I can't be a doctor. When I was a kid, my parents always used to say, become a doctor or a lawyer, right? You know, that's what they always say. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be one. I can't be one. But I can help you market to get more patients. I help more people. And essentially, I think that I'm helping them too. You know? And so that's kind of what I share. Yeah. Does that answer your question? Yeah.
Anybody else have questions? Any other questions? Gonna ask him now because you're gonna look up Bob and go, holy shit, I should have asked him that question. I didn't know that's who that was. Right? It happens every time.
Yeah. So a follow-up on that question, Bob. So it took you some time to transition over to medical.
Yeah.
And then, so how long, I mean, did you like dive all in, only doing medical to figure out, because when you're on in a niche, if you're trying to figure out what their systems and processes are in place, you're spending a significant amount of time determining what their processes are. Can you give me an idea of what that looks like?
I didn't answer your question last time because you asked me how long it took. So you got to build assets, right? And so those assets are the things that, so like for example in our accelerator, in our inner circle, they basically just copy everything that I've done and then they go out and they deploy it, right? And they'll put their name on it and they'll just, you know, use their software and they'll go out and deploy it and they're doing great. But for me, if you wanted to go into a separate niche, like I tried every niche. I worked with hotels, I worked with car dealers, I told you. I tried every single niche that I was really passionate about. And eventually, like I knew I could sell and I knew the fundamental stuff that businesses wanted and I could relate to them. But one of the big things is like, okay, well, I'm not really passionate about, you know, restaurants or anything like that. Like I don't want to do that. And then I was like, well, I want to make money doing this too, you know? And so then I mapped it all out. I said, okay, well, I kind of narrowed it down. And I had already a buddy of mine, actually this is one of the best things that happened to me. A buddy of mine from Toronto moved down to Dallas, North Dallas, and he runs a great company here called Posture Perfect. And I sat in his office for 1 week before I ever hit the medical space. And I learned everything about it. I was willing to put the time and effort into going out and do that without any, you know, money out of my pocket. However, you know, some of you guys or whoever, you know, may not be in that position to be able to take off a week and go in and sit somewhere. So, but you can go in and learn about these things. So I knew all their costs of their equipment, I knew what they were making, how to package it, how to price it, because this guy was killing it in this market. So I figured if I could take what he's doing and then actually relay it to other people, I was good. And so when I started to talk to medical doctors, I was talking their lingo. And I knew exactly what a decompression machine was, or a neuropathy machine, or I knew how much a laser should cost. You're charging too less, you should charge this because this guy's charging that. So I became more of an advisor to them, and they're like, oh, really? Yeah, really. Okay? So I wasn't just selling the funnels. Funnels on the back end of our deliverables is huge. It's a massive part of our business, don't get me wrong, right? But from the front end, when we're pitching, we want to I create expectation right from the start. I create expectation in my shock and awe box, in my mini webinar, in my application. In my shock and awe box, I put testimonials in there. Over 2 years, he's 200x'd our business. So I'm like, subconsciously kind of getting into their heads that when you speak to me, it ain't going to be no fly-by-night freaking thing. Because I don't want that. And it's the truth. It really is the truth. You can't change somebody's business overnight, right? Especially if a guy's got 40 employees. And that's a lot of the doctors that I deal with. They have big staff. So it took me, I created assets, I talked about that, so I wrote my book. Because when I was going into the clinics, the big thing that they would say is like, I've got this book that I'm writing. A lot of doctors will start writing a book. They actually just get down and start writing a book. They never finished it. And so I was like, man, if I create a book, that'll separate me. And so I created Automated Entrepreneur. I also created The Pain Inc. And I created another book with 20 other doctors across the country called Stem Cell Revolution. And so now if you want to be part of the Stem Cell Revolution, you have to deal with us, and you have to be in our marketing program so that we can vet you, And so I started creating these assets, the comic book, the patient journey, a whole bunch of things that I created that are different and hit people in different ways, right? Because somebody that's got a patient issue, a new patient issue, you go to the next guy, he doesn't have that issue, he's got a staffing issue, right? And then you go to him, and he doesn't have that, he's just got a pricing and packaging issue, or he's got a closing issue, or he's got a tracking, like everybody's got their different things, and when you find that, then you just kind of go at it. But yeah, it's definitely, hit up the recurring revenue, because that'll change your life. The one-offs are good, but if you can get them, that they've already, remember I said, it's easier to buy from somebody that's already bought from you, right? Just keep hitting them up, month after month. I really like the weekly payments. Who was doing that yesterday? I think I might try that. Yeah. I do ACH. So I do ACH, and I say, I want to take it out of your bank account.
How many people do you have on your team? You mentioned that you have a team of people that work with you, so you get a client, you're giving them, you said, a half an hour, a month, or something like that. Correct me if I'm wrong, you said that a lot of the clients that you have, you commit that you're giving them like a half an hour per month, and you have a team of people, I guess, that are servicing other aspects of what they need based on your assessment of their business and your proposal. How many people do you have on your team, and what does that look like in terms of how they interact with your clients?
Yeah, so good question. I still got some time, or?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
This will be the last.
Yeah, so we have, I think, about 14 people, and then we have some contractors and stuff like that. However, we were at about 25, 26, probably this time last year, and that's just too big for me. In fact, I want to scale it down a little bit further, maybe to 8 or 6 to 8. So I built a software called Evergenius, and Evergenius is basically, with one click, I got rid of my whole web development team. With one click, I can launch a medical site or contractor site or whatever it is, and it gives me, all the content, everything that's already included and built into that whole program, right? So that took away from having the need for website developers or designers or graphic artists and stuff like that. So now I just focus on the design, I focus on the copy of those sites, and then I give it to my developer and they build it, and that becomes one of our templates that my agencies can deploy if they wanted to, right? So I'm always trying to, and now the other thing is like at each level, when you niche down, you know what their pain points are. You know where they're struggling. You know, you do it long enough, you try to understand the business. And so in the prospect stage, I have a whole, 15-step sequence. In the consult stage, if you guys seen like Pipedrive and similar to, like Dash Clicks, he works on the back end and a little bit on the front end. We do it mostly on the front end. Our clients can log in and do all that kind of stuff. But when you go and you have an email sequence, you can just share it to the next guy, and then you can share it to your next account, next account, next account. And you can also, we just added voice in there, so you can send a mass voice drop, and you can integrate it with your action funnels and stuff like that. Yeah. So it's saved, getting back to your question, team of 14, but I want to drop it. And with those automations of the things that we're building, we're spending a lot on the front end, but I think longer term, it'll be worth it, because I really don't, like having a big staff. When I get to around 10, like I had 37 people in my real estate business. I was 26 years old, 0 schooling. Like it was a shit show. Like I just, yeah, really, it was. And so I learned a lot since then, but I don't want 10, 15, I don't want that big business. I had, 20,000 square foot office, state of the art, everything that I wanted, and I thought bigger was always better. And at the beginning of the month, there was a 200 grand nut that I had to crack, And so I don't want that. And that kind of like, even today, I mean, I could handle it, but even today, it's just like, man, just don't want that.
It's nice to be clear about what you're clear about, right? That's awesome.
Just don't want that.
Bob, you're awesome. All right, how about a nice round of applause for Bob? That's awesome. I'm sure everybody can reach out to you and connect to you as well.
Yeah, just you guys can get me on Facebook. Go to lessclientsmoremoney.com, and you guys can do a demo and talk to my guys if you want. We'll help you out with any resources, any things that we have, help you, along your way.